And we're ready whenever you are, Mayor.
Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's City Council meeting. For those who are attending remotely, the camera in the council chambers is set up to show those attending in person tonight. The platform we are using has a raised hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the upper right-hand corner. When we reach the point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to speak, to address council, you can click the button and be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
The
to the
Republic,
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation, under
nation, under God,
indivisible.
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Skelly,
Here?
Counselor Dilaba,
Here.
Counselor Fisher.
Here.
Counselor Kennedy,
Here.
Counselor Powers,
Here.
Counselor Reish,
Here,
Counselor Scamperly,
Here.
quorum present.
Do we have any presentations tonight?
We do not.
We have two public hearings tonight. First is regarding an ordinance to amend the official city map to dissolve a portion of Paper Cherry Street, generally described as being 60 feet in width and 690 feet in length between Lake Street and the Maple City Trail tax map parcel 59.022-4-58.1. It's going to be bill number 117, and I will open that to public hearing now. If you are attending remotely, which everyone is, and wish to speak, you have 5 minutes and use the raise hand feature.
The first individual I see with a hand raised is registered as Henry and Kathleen Bouchard, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears that person has disappeared, Mayor. I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay, no one's there. Then I will declare this public hearing closed. The next public hearing is regarding an ordinance amending Article 2 entitled Personal Policies and Procedures, AR-17, entitled Procedures of the City Council Meetings of the Administrative Regulations of the City of Ogdensburg. This is going to be bill number 119, and I will open that for public hearing now. Please use the raise hand feature to speak.
I do not see any hands raised.
I declare this hearing closed. Personal appearance. Before we begin personal appearance, I want to remind everyone that personal and slanderous attacks towards member of councils or staff are not permitted. Anyone who does not comply with the guidelines will be disconnected from speaking. At this time, if anyone attending remotely, please use the raise hand feature and you will have 5 minutes.
The first individual is registered as Michael Tooley, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you are self-muted. It appears your line is open.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with City Council this evening. First, at the workshop for the review of the proposed 2021 budget for the police department, Councilor Reese suggested the city might consider including money in the budget to cover the cost of the firm that pursues grant opportunities for its clients. If possible, can the public be informed if money for such a purpose was budgeted? I think Councilor Reese's idea is a good one. So following that workshop, I sent an email to the city manager and to the police chief, sharing the name of a North Country firm that helps clients with grant writing as well as grant searches. I suggested that the city pursue this idea with any firm. Grants for any city department might be sought, not just a focus on the police department. I'd like to note both men responded to me, acknowledging receipt of my email. Both thanked me, and I appreciated the fact that they got back to me. Second, during the workshop at which the proposed 2021 budget for the fire department was discussed, the city manager made two statements that I would like to comment on. The first, at one point, the subject of the write-off of a significant dollar amount of taxes receivable was referenced. City manager stated that the prior city council had cooked the books by not writing these receivables off prior to 2019. I believe his inference was that the prior city council purposely kept the fund balance inflated to support their decision to ratify the union contracts late last year. Before stating an opinion on this comment, I note I have not discussed this issue with any member of prior city councils or with prior city administrations. But I think one possibility that might be reasonable is that city council and administration may have gotten legal advice not to write down the receivables while legal action or negotiations were ongoing, as such a move might hurt the city's chances to recover these monies. Even if I'm off base, I don't think prior city council had an evil motive to keep these receivables on the books. I do not think they were purposely trying to deceive our citizens. And I note, looking back on audit reports for each of the past 5 years, that in each year the auditors expressed an unqualified opinion, the best opinion they can give. And in each year, the published financial statements fairly presented the city's financial position as of December 31st. A reference to cooking the books I might expect to hear from a politician, but not from the chief executive officer of municipality, who I believe should be apolitical. The second statement I speak to is the city manager's response that a reason for not sharing information with city council pertaining to discussions he had with the city attorney involving the possibility of acting in violation of the current contract with the fire department was due to attorney-client confidentiality. I admit, I'm not an attorney. But in my layman's view, when the city manager discusses legal issues affecting the city with its attorney, the client is the city of Ogdensburg. Such being the case, the city's governing board should be able to obtain information from such discussions, and I hope the city manager will be forthcoming in sharing information with these discussions with city council in executive session in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
The next individual is registered as David Price, and I will unmute that individual now.
Good evening, council. To follow Mike Tooley's shoes is surely a daunting task. The man is brilliant and made some very good points. But I'll continue. The actions taken by council since January 2020 have been contrary to economic common sense and contrary to what the citizens voted for a year ago in November. This council wants us only to pay attention to our high tax rate while ignoring the other economic factors which determine your taxes. They're trying to address the symptoms without treating the disease. The nearest city to Ogdensburg is Watertown. Watertown has a tax rate of $9 per thousand of assessed value, while Ogdensburg has a tax rate of $19 per thousand. Those numbers seem way out of whack, and they're the only numbers the current council wants you to focus upon. However, there is more to the property tax formula. The average property value in Watertown is $126,600. Ogdensburg is $69,900. So the average taxpayer in Watertown pays about $1,134 per year, and the average taxpayer in Ogdensburg pays about $1,328 per year. Roughly the same amount for similar services provided in any city. So our real problems are obvious. Our property values are low, and we have too many tax-exempt properties. So how does cutting positions and taking away services help these problems? It doesn't. In fact, the council's actions since January only serve to lower our property values. That will eventually lead to a higher tax rate. This council will point to a budgeted reduction in the tax levy by 10% in 2021 as proof that they are helping the citizens. However, because they have cut city services, you are actually paying a little less in order to receive a lot less for your money. It's the same thing as the cable company saving you money by switching you to a plan with half the channels. By violating the New York State Taylor laws and their violation of the firefighters' contract, this council's actions will cost the taxpayers way more in the near future. It just doesn't make economic sense. In November 2019, the voters believed that they were voting for people who would lower their taxes without cutting city employee positions. The voters were told, heard, and read that the people holding these jobs were our family, our friends, and neighbors who would have increased job protection under new leadership. Because of those promises, new councilors and a mayor were elected. As we review the actual outcome of the first year of leadership under a new regime, we see an entirely different picture than that which was promised. The entire Parks and Rec department has been destroyed. We no longer have a controller, a fire chief, nor assessor. The police department has lost officer positions as well as dispatchers. The fire department is being decimated by a cut of 7 positions and is facing the threat to fire 2 more. An experienced, competent, and qualified city manager was pushed out for conducting city business with integrity. Job security, indeed. Everyone would like to spend much less money in taxes, but not at the expense of our services. What this regime has done to the voters of the city is similar to bait and switch in the world of business. You promise the world to get in and then steamroll once you're there. It's shameful, only hasten our downward economic spiral. When a lawsuit is brought to seek a lower tax assessment on an apartment complex, it doesn't reduce the tax burden, it shifts it to other taxpayers. I asked the citizens, is that what you voted for? I remember in the spring, Governor Cuomo came out when he declared a state of emergency in New York due to the COVID pandemic. He stated that any municipality that cuts leadership positions or public safety positions and during the state of emergency would face a reduction in any state aid if the state would not support such moves. That's exactly what we've done. I hope we've budgeted accordingly to accept the lack of state funding. I won't use the remaining time to wait for answers to questions. It's become clear to all of us that it's not just that you won't answer them, it's simply that you don't know the answers. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Dave.
You, Dave?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay. And this brings us to correspondence.
Mayor,
Yeah.
2 hands just went up. Did you want me to continue?
No.
Okay.
Do we have any correspondence?
We do not.
Next, we have a consent agenda, and that claims are as enumerated in general fund warrant number 21-2020 in the amount of $427,300.41, and library warrant number 21-2020 in the amount of $0, and capital fund warrant number 21-2020 in the amount of $110, and community development fund warrant number 21-2020 in the amount of $0, and community renewal fund warrant number 21-2020 in the amount of $0. As audited, be and the same hereby are ordered paid. I so move.
Second.
Kathy, would you call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reish, Counselor Reish,
Yes. Can you hear me?
Counselor Yes, sir. Thank you. Counselor Scamperly, Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
thank you. Approved.
Do we have any appointments?
We do not.
Our first item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is an ordinance to amend the official city map to dissolve a portion of paper Cherry Street, generally described as being 60 feet in width and 690 feet in length between Lake Street and the Maple City Trail, tax map parcel 59.022-4-58.1. Would you like me to read the full resolution?
I'll move it.
No, you're good.
I'll second that. Discussion?
So when we first talked about this, I asked that the city maintain a right of way of, I think we're talking about 30 feet so that we can always, we won't give up the right to add a sewer line in there for water,
Storm.
storm water, correct? And is that going to be a part of this?
It is presently not included in the survey nor in the parcel description that was provided. This is simply the result of the request that the city received, which did not include any reference to a desire to have or willingness to have an easement, but obviously that is we withhold the right to have any easement, but there was no, not at this time.
Not at this time, but when we sell it, we would include that in there to all purchasers, right?
It could be, if that is the desire of the council, it would need to be amended by the surveyor and written in to the survey and to the deed eventually.
This is just the first step, right?
Where the next step is
This has been reviewed. So the first step is that we receive a request
Yeah.
from an interested party. And that request is then in accordance with our charter sent to the planning board who reviews it. The planning board reviews recommendations from any department that might have a concern. And then they make a recommendation to the city council. So
But when we put it up for sale, we would put those stipulations in at that time.
we could, yes.
And again,
Mayor, could I,
Oh, hang on one second, Steve, sorry.
I tried again to find out why the planning board was against it, and I couldn't get the answers. So I called them and I got somewhat of answers, and they still don't seem like it's a good idea. That we own it, we're definitely gonna have to do the work up there eventually. I think we need to start listening to these people if we're gonna have these boards. And if this is gonna come like this, like Dan says, it should be right from the get-go. If we know there's even a slightest bit of possibility, we're gonna have to walk back through there, do any type of work. Even before it gets to this point, it should say in there that we'll have the easement in the, regardless of whatever somebody brings as a proposal. The city's interest should be looked at first and foremost, long before anyone else's. And especially with the fact that they said no, the DPW director said no. He didn't think it was a good idea, but we just go on the same idea that we want to put all the stuff on the tax rolls, which I agree with. And it's been compared to off of Proctor Ave, which is two different entities. Down at Proctor, there was no future development going to be there. There was no infrastructure that was going to be done. Where here, we know there's a distinct possibility or a definite possibility that we're going to end up here. But yet we bring this forward and our needs aren't taken care of or even considered in the motion, the action. So I won't, until it's in there, I won't support it at all. And I think Dan's correct for bringing that up, and you beat me to it.
If I may, Mayor, I could respond. When this was initially put on your agenda, I believe that you all received a copy of the minutes and the staff report from the planning board. And in addition to the concern that was raised by the Department of Public Works regarding stormwater management, the concern from the planning department, and one of the paramount concerns that the planning department is charged with looking at, is whether or not the proposed dissolution would landlock any parcels or prohibit future development. And in this case, the proposed dissolution, while it does not landlock any parcels, there are two parcels, both north and south generally, the property owned by the Lalondes as well as the property owned by United Helpers, that are in excess of 2 acres each. Therefore, each of those parcels has the ability to be subdivided in conformance with our present zoning code to support development in the future. While it is true that there are no development plans that I am aware of for either of those parcels, that is the responsibility that the planning department has in making these reviews. And being that two large parcels abut this paper street, dissolution will severely limit any future subdivision or development because it will eliminate road frontage. And therefore, that is the primary reason that the planning department recommended to the planning board that they recommend denial. So both the planning department as well as the Department of Public Works recommended denial, which is why the planning board ultimately followed through with a denial recommendation.
Well, one of the planning board people worked for DOT and was very knowledgeable, and he explained what he saw the future being and what he thought was going to happen, and expressed those concerns, I believe, at the planning board meeting. But again, I looked up to be able to read it on the website, and the last posting was March 3rd, so I couldn't do that. So I didn't have anywhere to go to ask the questions, and we have a public hearing on it, but yet even if the public did want to go and review it, they didn't have the opportunity because they couldn't read it. So they wouldn't know what people's decisions were or where they were going with it or what the argument was. So we have a public hearing early that says you can come and talk, but yet you don't have any information about it because you can't review it. So it's kind of like two wrongs.
Right. And I do appreciate you calling and alerting us to the fact that the minutes weren't posted. They are published with the clerk's office. I did confirm that, but there was an error in posting them. So the last 4 minutes from the planning board meeting are not available on the city's website, and they have not been, but that will be rectified tomorrow.
Right.
So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
But we had the public hearing already. So if the public did want to speak about it, they wouldn't have known what they were speaking about anyway. So because they couldn't have read it. And even though it was.
Well, we talked about it. We talked about it not too long. Well, when the first idea came up, those were some of my concerns as well, along with Councilor Fisher and Scamperly, but more importantly, the size of the tract of property, which extends quite a distance from New York Avenue all the way back to the crest of the hill. And the large parcels, as Andrea had made mention of, were my concerns for any potential development moving back there and making Cherry Street an actual street at some point with development or residential development, whatever the case may be. So it's they're all good points taken. I spoke with some planning board members as well, and they haven't, quite frankly, they haven't budged from their position from Jump Street. And I tend to fall in line with Councilor Fisher here that I think that's a pretty good property to be able to advance later down the road.
Could I make a suggestion? I'd be interested in hearing either from our own engineer or the Development Authority of North Country if they have our plans for sewer separation, to have them tell us whether or not it's needed for that sewer line or whether the next street over would work. I'd like to hear it from them directly, either in a memo or something, but before we vote on it.
Well, this would be less costly likely because we wouldn't be tearing up Spruce Street and putting it back. But as far as separating those lots, so you have two owners of two big lots, and if they were to subdivide them, they would have to sell this parcel to the new owners because they've got to have access to them. So that would take care of that one issue. If they want to sell it, subdivide it and sell it, they're going to have to sell access to it. And then, I think we do need to look at, the possibility that we want to put a storm sewer there because that would be cheaper than tearing up a blacktop road and putting back. And we could put in, stipulations for that. It seems to me. I mean, if we want to move ahead and lower the property that we own, we're going to have to do something. It's not all going to be perfect.
And if the two property owners have any plans for development, they probably would have spoke, or they can actually buy it at the public auction. Probably highly unlikely that they have an interest. You might get development by the mere fact that it's in private hands too. That's generally how development works. But I would like to have that opinion from our engineers. I think that would be important to have, an important piece of information before we vote on this. So I'd make a motion to table.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I think we should. I'll second. Let's table it.
Kathy, would you call the roll?
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes, that's fine to table.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
No.
Counselor Dillabaugh,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
tabled.
Your next item, thank you, Andrea. Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
An ordinance amending Article 2 entitled Personnel Policies and Procedures, AR 17, entitled Procedures of City Council Meetings of the Administrative Regulations of the City of Ogdensburg.
I'll introduce that.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
It can be difficult for me.
Yeah. It's a little difficult for me too.
For me?
I agree. It's a little difficult for me too. I like the 7 o'clock. Seems to work best.
I mean, I can understand the aspect of wanting to save an hour, but in the grand scheme of things, my schedule doesn't have any, I don't have a set schedule as far as anything, but 7 o'clock seems to work better than anything else for me, so I'm opposed to it.
Any further discussion?
I thought we were pretty much agreeable with it the first time it came around.
Yeah, so was I. I like 6.
I wasn't. I made it pretty clear that I wasn't. I can remember when it happened. It didn't,
I know my schedule better than anybody. It's not suitable for me. And, you know, I kind of threw my hands up in the air just for obvious reasons and left it there. So, you know, but I'm opposed to it.
I voted against even the public hearing.
Pardon?
I voted against the public hearing even. I didn't even want it to come this far.
I've spoke to several members of the public when they were questioning why we were going to make this change, and they voiced their concerns that a lot of them work until 6 p.m. So since we've had the meeting, I've talked to several people, and they've let me know that that doesn't work for them. And a lot of those people like to attend virtually now that we have that option. So I'm gonna go just based on the amount of people that I've talked to since the last meeting where we were bringing this forward. I've had at least 10 to 12 people that have called to voice their displeasure at moving it, and so I'm gonna go no, just based on speaking out for the public that has asked me to speak for them.
Kathy?
The same note, I didn't get anybody concerned. And
No, I didn't
the
either.
thing is that I thought it was a good idea only because the meetings have been going pretty late, and it seems like getting an early start to it, you know, 10, 11 o'clock would be.
For me personally, 6 or 7 isn't a big deal for me personally, but I'm gonna vote for what the taxpayers have asked me to do. So I'm gonna vote no just based on that. But for me personally, 6 or 7 I don't have a preference. But based on what I've been asked of the taxpayers, that's just being honest and where I'm going with it.
Okay. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Powers,
No.
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
No.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dillabaugh,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
No.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
A resolution to establish the official newspapers for the publication of local laws and notices and other matters required by law to be published by the City of Ogdensburg for 2021. Be it resolved that the City of Ogdensburg
I have no sound out of City Hall. I have dead silence on my end.
I didn't hear it either.
Yeah. Nothing.
But it's the Watertown Times and North Country Now.
Many people up here use North Country Now. Important that our citizens get our legal notices, and this will allow it. And I'm real happy for this. I wanted this since first of the year.
I'm not suggesting that it's not. I mean, but these are the periodic. We couldn't hear the audio, so I'm
Yeah,
asking.
the audio was completely dead on our end. We couldn't hear anything of the introduction from City Manager.
Nothing's changed. I'm just for clarity. Watertown Times and North Country Now, both periodicals.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Good on discussion. Kathy, would you call the roll?
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dillabaugh,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement between the City of Ogdensburg and the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority for security services at the Ogdensburg International Airport through the City Police Department.
I'll introduce this item.
I'll second it.
Discussion.
Can you just give us the nuts and bolts of it for the public?
I was supposed to call on Lawrence. Councilor Powers, can you hear me good?
Yes, sir.
So a 3-year agreement for security services, $185,000 base contract, ultimately funds 2 positions. Excuse me, we'll bill that monthly. We've discussed with the Bridge and Port Authority the timeliness of payments. We've agreed to a 60-day receipt of payment schedule. The rest of the agreement is by and large the same as it's always been. I think the executive director was standing by. I didn't know, Mayor, if you wanted to let him make some comments, if it's appropriate now. Let me see if he's still there.
Are you there, Steve?
Yes, Mayor. This is Steve Lawrence, and I have Sam Burns, our chairman, and Jennifer Pickman are here, and we'd like to take this opportunity to just make some comments and discuss our viewpoint on this. Would that be okay?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Sam Burns, Chairman of the OBPA. Your Honor, Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for allowing us to present information to you. As Interim Director, Mr. Lawrence has already stated, Board Member Jennifer Pickman is here too, and we'll make this as brief as possible. As you know, the Bridge and Port Authority considers the City of Ogdensburg to be our partners. We've worked a lot together over the years. You know, we have the same mission, I think, to make the city a better place for all of our residents to live and work in, as well as to attract industry and commerce to our area to provide more jobs for our citizens. First off, let me state that in regards to this contract, the Bridge and Port Authority has received numerous compliments on how professional and courteous the police officers have been while on duty at the airport. So certainly on behalf of the Bridge and Port Authority, we would like to thank them for, again, the professional job that they do out there and how well they're received by the public. However, I think given the opportunity to address the council, and in prior years, the executive director and I think the chair of the board used to address the council periodically to give the city an update on what's been going on here at the Bridge and Port Authority. Due to COVID, we haven't done this. We were going to schedule this particular meeting, I believe, in April, where Mr. Lawrence and I would come to the council and give you some information. As you all know, the border has been shut down since March of 2020 due to COVID. I'm not sure if the council and the public are aware, but due to this, our traffic for cars has been down roughly 95% for most of that time period. We've been fortunate that truck traffic has only been down as of recently 5%. Still, we're losing anywhere between $160,000 to $180,000 a month because of that border being shut down. In the past, we've used that revenue to help pay for the expenses at the airport. So obviously you can see what dilemma we're in. Some of the expenses at our airport for the last 8 months from April through November, 21% of our expenses at the airport has to do with salaries. That goes everywhere from our airport manager to the workers who clear the runway, who fuel the planes, who do other things out there. As you all know, the expansion a few years ago not only expanded the runway, but also increased our costs out there. The particular Leo airport security expense we're talking about tonight cost the Bridgeport Authority approximately 12% of the expenses out there. Understand that as of this year, that 8-month period, we have lost over $600,000 operating that airport. We understood going into this, I was not on the board at the time, but when the board made a decision to expand the airport, I think they all realized that it would cost more in expenses than the revenue they would earn for years. I think a lot of surveys show that most airports do not make money. We understand that, but compounded with the problem with the border, you can see what issues we have in financially. We understand that with the agreement that's been in place for a few years now, let's just talk about this year from January 1, 2020 through December 1, 2020. The 11 months, we've been billed for 2,200 hours of LEO services, law enforcement services at the airport. This included time that were actually punched in because the officers do that while out there. That was 924 hours where they actually punched in. So we've actually paid for 1,276 hours when no officer was out there. We understand the contract that we signed in the past. We understand the contract moving forward that's on your agenda tonight pretty much represents the same agreement on the 200 hours. We would also like the council and the public to understand that, again, we're partners with the city, but know that this costs the Bridgeport Authority a lot of money.
Yes, it is unfortunate. You guys are really going through a lot, and so are a lot of communities. We just got news today. State aid's going to be cut. It's definitely a difficult time, and that airport is great for the whole region. It truly is what you've accomplished by putting that, extending that runway and making that airport into what it is. It really is quite an accomplishment.
Well, we haven't gotten official word that the aid is out yet.
We did.
20%, not all of it.
Well, 20%, 300.
Everybody's going to take 20%. He's waiting on
300. No, I'm just saying $340,000. I'm reading it.
But probably
That's
close to 20%.
It's going to be more.
Well, I'm just saying that
Yeah,
the
340.
blatant line right now, we're looking at 2020's out over 300,000, 340,000.
But anyway, we're talking about the Bridgeport and
Same boat, 40. They're in the same boat. Yeah, they're no different than we are.
I know.
I'm not making, listen, I listen to the governor every day. I have to. It's my job. And he said if he doesn't get federal aid, then there's going to be even more cuts beyond the 20% that he's looking to cut. And it all depends on what the federal aid comes in at, whether it be 15 billion, 10 billion, 20 billion, 5 billion, whatever the case may be.
I think he said also that he would be, even if he the federal aid, he would still be
20%.
cutting
raising taxes
and cutting taxes. It said it was $60 billion that the state was in the hole over the next 4 years. And he said even if they gave a significant amount, taxes being raised and cuts were probably forthcoming. I listened to him this afternoon.
Yeah, well, I'm not debating that.
Cutting services and raising taxes.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll
it's
say
bleak
that.
for everyone.
Right, the resolution here for it.
So, are we good with the
Are they
discussion?
happy
Are
with
we
it?
ready to call the roll?
Thank you, Sam, for that presentation.
Ask him.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Sam and Steve and everyone.
I have a question. Is the Bridge and Port Authority making a different proposal?
Yes,
Is
I
this
don't think
different
so.
from
I
the
think
one-
they're just,
This
I
is
think
different
they're-
from the one we agreed on not too long ago?
no. I don't think they're making a difference proposal. I think they just wish that this one wasn't as costly. That's the impression I get.
Well said.
Will they be clear?
And
Steve or Sam or somebody, will you be a little bit more clear about what you're saying?
What's the difference between this one and the last one?
Not a whole lot. It's pretty much the same. Like the city manager mentioned that, the terms of payment were expanded to 60 days. And then there was a couple things we added, but it's basically the same thing. But the environment is different. So we're being asked to pay something similar to what we had last year. And yet, as everyone knows, Allegiance pulled out. We don't have the number of flights and the volume at the airport. And we just feel that, given all of that, if you look at it from our point of view, we're paying the same, but actually not needing all of those hours going forward with the reduced flights. So, that's our viewpoint on this, and that's we just wanted to make that known.
And
Did that
it's
answer your
very,
question?
yeah, it's very understandable. It's a valid point that you make. It's,
Well,
we're just in a bind to keep our police force intact also. And, yeah, it's just it's a difficult situation.
Are you asking
And
us to table this, Steve, to give you guys a chance to renegotiate?
I'm sorry, the issue with that, Counselor Scamperly, is the contract runs out at the end of the month, and we have to have a contract in place, or we have to shut down the airport. So this needs to be done before December 31st.
If you're not,
Is this, Ben? I mean, this is, I mean,
yeah, Steve, I think the council should always, if you're not happy with it, we should always give you 90 days or more to come up with something else. No, I would never want to cut you off or force you to with a short deadline. That was done once, and that was I wouldn't want that. That's not fair. If you want an extension, I believe most counselors would vote for that, and so you could do something else.
Mr. Mayor, I think the dollar amount comes out the same, whether you extend it or not. It's, we just wanted to make it clear to the council that we understand the charge that the city wants us to pay. Times are difficult for all of us. As you stated, Mr. Mayor, we have no ability to tax. All of our revenue comes from the different parts of the Bridge and Port Authority, be it the bridge, the port, the airport, the railroading industrial park. And as all of you know, and certainly the public knows, COVID has affected all of that. including a reduced amount from the industrial park because tenants that requested, not paying, as much as they did before, or when everything was due because of COVID. So we've worked with them to do the right thing, again, for the community. We just want the council to understand it's a financial hit for us. We have concerns going into 2021. As you know, we're not going to sit back and say we lost our low-cost carrier with a direct flight to Florida. We will certainly go out and try to get that back, whether it be through Allegiant or some other firm. As we all know, that was very popular, and we believe the demand will be there once COVID goes away. But, we still have the essential air service through SkyWest that flies to Chicago and Washington, D.C. We have certain requirements, as you know. We understand we have to pay for it. Again, it's a financial strain on us. We just wanted to make sure all of our elected officials are aware of that strain.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Sam. I know I really understand. I think the council all understand it's, and I am sorry that it is that expensive for you.
Sam, I have I don't see a term on this, this agreement. What is this? Are you looking for this to be the fiscal year, 2 year?
It's 2 years.
I
Unlisted.
believe it, I'm
3
sorry,
years.
it's my understanding it's 3 years, Councilor Powers.
Yes.
Paragraph 8 on the second page, Counselor.
Pardon me?
Paragraph 8 on the second page.
3 years.
There's no 8. Am I looking at the wrong one?
I don't see an 8.
The very second to last page.
Terms of this agreement, I'm sorry, I apologize. Okay, I got it. December 30. All right, my bad. I overlooked it. Obviously, the bridge and port has its struggles as well. I don't think anybody here can acknowledge the fact that they don't. Your bridge traffic is obviously taking a hit. How is your? Well, you know what? That's not my business. That's your business. I'll ask that at your next board meeting if it's relevant. Forget it.
Anytime.
Well, thank you, everyone. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reish,
Abstain.
approved.
Our last item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
A resolution to extend the expiration date of the term of members of all boards and commissions with a term set to expire on December 31, 2020.
Oh, that.
I'll second that.
I want to go a little further. I don't think anybody wants to serve.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Yeah, well, I don't understand what the purpose is.
So, Counselor, we've got several council-approved vacancies that will be coming up, terms expiring. And I want to be able to give council the overview that some of the council members have asked for to make appointments that the council sees fit. I think it's important at this juncture with 4 new members on the board that we look at all the committees and make sure that you're in all the boards, committees, and commissions, and make sure that the makeup is representational of what council wants. And I'll have that for the first board meeting in January.
Kathy, would you call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes?
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
No.
Counselor Powers,
Nah.
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
No.
approved.
Okay, and this brings us to old business. Does anyone on council have some old business?
So I'd like to talk about the fire department. Basically, what's the plan right now? I know with the budget being passed, it looks like we're gonna lose 7 men. And I'm wondering, when is that supposed to transpire? What is the plan for fighting fires? Do we have mutual aid agreements in place? And what about the retirements, things like that? Can we get an update on what's going on here and have a discussion?
Should we,
Some of those topics right now, I would say are for executive session. We can certainly have, a meeting between now and the first of the year. On the personnel matters, I just not ready to comment, without outside of executive session on that until we put some plans in place. As far as mutual aid agreements, we have a long-standing St. Lawrence County mutual aid agreement that we participate in. So we already have mutual aid. As far as the plan for fighting fires, we'll be fighting fires the way we always fight fires. I've given direction a couple months ago for the assistant chiefs to prepare for a minimum staffing of 4. To my knowledge, that has been being carried out as I've directed. I'm not sure what other questions you have that I can answer now. I certainly will take down any others that you have. I ultimately hope, Counselor and all counselors, that the local 1799 comes and sits down with us and discusses options, courses of action, and ways that we can reach the staffing levels that the city can afford without laying people off. I've always believed, I've told Audrey since the get-go of this, I believe we can do this without layoffs. Just need the union to come and sit down and have a discussion with us how to do that. I will send to all of you a more in-depth analysis than the summary that I sent you, but so I'm on the record, $778,000 initial annual savings is what the reductions in the fire department bias. So multiplied by 5 years, it's $3.6, $3.7 million. It's not insignificant money. I do not agree with the bulk of the numbers that were submitted by the fire department, but let's just say I'll go with their assumption that it's $2.1 million on top of 3.6 or 3.7. That's close to $6 million in savings to the city. That's pretty substantial. So we should take advantage of those cost saving initiatives that they put forward in addition to these staffing reductions. For instance, the overtime is, they're offering to reduce the amount of overtime that we should have already done. We should have reduced the number of people that are on leave at any one given time when we reduced the strength of each shift of the organization, and we didn't do that. So they're only offering things that we really need to do as a matter of good business. EMT stipend, yep. I mean, again, if they're willing to put that up there, their salaries, their average salary of a firefighter in the city is the highest, higher than the police department average salary, higher than the DPW average salary, and yet we pay them an EMT stipend on top of that. So, I think there's lots of discussion we could be having, but it has to revolve around reducing the size of the organization. We don't get the savings that we need by simply cutting out things like overtime or their ENT stipend, things that they could have come to us a long time ago, things that they could have negotiated out in the last contract. So I guess my ultimate hope is if any of you have influence with members of the union, the fire department, you'll get them to agree to come to the table and sit down and figure out how we map out a plan that results in no layoffs. I think there's solutions there. Just need them to come to the table and work on it.
Well, I thank you for that. One, the agreement that you have now with the county would look an awful lot different as to what it looks like what you're proposing. That is in itself is going to cause a significant public safety issue that could potentially lead down the road even further litigation from the private sector and not so much a collective bargaining unit. You've got some mandates that you're suggesting through your staffing levels. And again, that, in my opinion, create a significant negative to the services, the important services, the issues that this city has as far as drug use, the first responding, the hazmat. You've got one engine running, one engine that probably needs to be refurbished, and you're putting them on garbage, expecting to, without knowing who's in what firehouse, to come and respond to another call. To me is, in just my opinion, I don't need a rebuttal, but it's negligent, period.
Yeah, well, you might not need a rebuttal, but you're probably going to get one. So you could have bought them a fire truck last year, the year before, the year before that, but we haven't budgeted $1 in the last several years to buy a fire truck to replace what you called the garbage. So I can only say, Counselor, I'm doing my work on this year to budget capital money so that we can buy fire trucks.
You haven't invested in that fire department. The city hasn't invested in that fire department. And the equipment is antiquated.
The only thing you've invested in is fluffing contracts, Counselor. That's all we've invested in. The building's not in good shape. The equipment's not in good shape. As you pointed out the last meeting, we've got lots of things to do to improve the fire department. And all we've done is put money into the salaries. We haven't put money into training. We haven't put money into equipment. We haven't put money into anything. Salaries, salaries, salaries. Overtime money, more overtime money, incentives. That's where we put our money.
Okay, and this brings us to new
Oh,
business.
I have something.
Oh, go ahead.
I read on today about the incident in City Hall after a fire department member was reprimanded. I would like to request the video from City Hall that day to be able to view it. How do I go about that?
Yeah, please.
I don't believe at this point any of us can have it. It's been turned over to the state police and they're investigating it. I'm sure when the.
No, I'm not talking about the incident with the mayor. I'm talking about the incident with Jerry Mack. That I read some things on some accusations that were made on Facebook regarding the reprimand that he received and an incident that followed after that. I would just like to see if the accusation is of merit, and then as a council, if it is of merit, how we react to it. So I would like to view the video from that day.
So, Counselor, you're speaking of the employee was not reprimanded. He was presented with a notice of charges. Right now is currently a matter of open investigation and an open disciplinary action. I will communicate with our legal team to see if it's appropriate that you or anybody else on council review it at this point, and I'll provide you a response back.
Thank you. I just know that it's been foiled and the foils have been pushed out to 45 days. And I didn't know if council is subject to having to foil that ourselves or if that is something we can just have access to. Thank you.
Under old business, I'm just wondering about the governor's police reform and where we stand on that.
Yep. So, Counselor, the presentation, the last presentation I gave you is still where we are to date. Right after the first of the year, we'll be convening the first meeting of our key stakeholders group and moving forward to meet the governor's deadline by the middle of April.
Are we on new business now?
Yeah. You're the chair.
Okay. Anyone with new business? Okay.
Oh, I have one thing. Sorry, Mayor.
Jeez.
I was wondering if we can do signups for people to be able to come to a council meeting to speak to the council. I know several people, like we're doing signups for skating at the Lockwood right now. Would it be possible if someone wanted to address the council, to sign up ahead of time, speak to the council, and then immediately leave afterwards. Not stay for the meeting, but if they want to address council in person with a mask, they can sign up ahead of time, and then they can be called when it is their time. They can be let in the building and then let out as soon as they're done speaking, so that way they can address council in person.
I'd support that.
I'm not sure. I mean, you guys are home and safe, and we're here.
I would be more than happy if the public is allowed to come in to speak. I would have no issue coming in to sit on the council, to listen to the public. But my question is that something we can do? If we can take signups for ice skating, can we allow the public to come in and speak on a sign-in basis, and they speak and then they leave directly afterwards? They don't stay for the meeting. They don't stay for discussion. We maintain social distancing. They won't be anywhere more than probably, they only get a few minutes. So, I mean, it won't, even if we limit it to either the beginning or the end of the meeting, I just think it would give a good faith judgment to, our community members that were listening.
Don't you think it's best for their safety as well as who's over their safety to try and keep the numbers down? Isn't that the idea?
I mean, City Hall may be closed. It was closed in the spring, and it's possible that it's going to be closed again soon.
But City Hall is currently open. So while City Hall is currently open, is this something we could adapt for our taxpayers?
I think, Nicole, I think that the opportunity to speak all the way down through has never been taken away from the public. I don't think it would make any difference whether or not somebody's standing there at the podium or if I'm listening to them to speak on video, just like I'm listening to you.
I know. I
understand your point of view. I don't see any goodwill or anything that's bad will.
Yeah.
I understand your point of view, but some people like to be heard, and they like to be able to look people in the eye or look at them in the face when they're speaking. And I just think that, I was just curious if what the consensus of council is if that is something we could do to offer our taxpayers right now. If they wanted to sign up ahead of time, they can sign off a COVID checklist for their symptoms, have their temperature checked at the door. I mean, we're doing things to get other things open like skating, but we're still keeping people out of City Hall. So I'm just asking if we can do it for skating. Can we do it one at a time for a meeting? There might be nobody who takes us up on it, but the several people that I've talked to would like to have at least a chance at it. So
no, and I think that I don't even think that the skating's probably a good idea, to be honest with you. If I had a child, I wouldn't be signing up or taking my child skating, but that's completely up to the parent. If the school system keeps shutting down and this thing is running rampant, I suggested last week that we went back to the City Hall being an appointment only, and I almost didn't come here. I almost did the same thing you're doing tonight, but at the last minute I came because I was doing something else and I didn't get the link. But I think until these numbers start coming down, the people are dying, the numbers are up. And we compare it to taking our kids skating, I think is irresponsible.
Yeah, it's not the time. Are we on new business now? Or done with new business? Are we on discussion?
Well, I think then if you're not going to let people speak personally, you ought to at least let them speak by phone. You denied a couple people the right to speak tonight, Mr. Mayor.
You know
and
the
I'm
rules.
trying to be as respectful as possible here.
You know the rules. You were on council. I watched you sit there and never answer a question for years. So you know the rules.
Yeah.
You were there before I got there.
I've always answered questions.
No. I've had questions.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Which one are we on?
I'm not sure if we're on new business or discussion.
That was the end of new business.
Okay, now let's go to discussion then. Anyone?
Seaweed.
Okay, and this brings us to citizens' participation. At this time, anyone that's attending remotely, use the raise hand feature, and you will have 2 minutes. Nothing personal, nothing slanderous.
Oh, good
Talk about
Lord.
city business, please.
The first individual is registered as Molly Sargent, and I will unmute that person now. It appears you are self-muted. It appears your line is self-muted.
No.
It appears your line is open.
Hi, good evening. I'm a taxpayer of Ogdensburg, born and raised here. My husband, also a native, and I have raised 3 children here. 2 of the 3 still live here. Why? Well, it used to be a great place to live and raise kids. However, our newest mayor has created havoc in our city. His blatant disregard for others in this community is unprecedented. Ogdensburg is constantly on the local news. It is openly joked that Ogdensburg makes Watertown look good. The press coverage is about infighting among council and lawsuits. Imagine, where else can you find the mayor suing the city he is governing? Recently, the mayor was interviewed and he claimed that he was blocked by a city fireman as the mayor was trying to slip in the side door of City Hall for a budget meeting. This same mayor stated that he had to be driven to and dropped off at City Hall because, in his words, his house had been vandalized and he didn't want anything to happen to his truck. What does this statement infer about our city? Crime and vandalism are rampant? The mayor is announcing our city is unsafe. That's funny. The mayor and his majority have attacked the city police department and eliminated police. How's that working for you, Mr. Skelly? I ask, why is the mayor entering through a side door? Is this not a metaphor for his lackluster 11 months in office? If the mayor stands by and for his decisions, why not go through the front door instead of sneaking in? It is similar to the Fab Four sneaking in Mr. Jelly without the job being advertised. Mr. Jelly is not qualified to do the job, but he was snuck in with a 4-3 vote. At the recent budget meeting, it was suggested that the council table the budget hearing to allow time for the councilors to look at a proposal that the fire department submitted. Tabling the budget would have been the right thing to do. We can only deduce that the mayor and the city manager were afraid that one of the Fab Four would see some merit in the fire department proposal. But no, they went forward and cut jobs, thinning out our fire department. How can they sleep at night? I'm not done. The mayor consistently says he wants people to come forward with solutions. However, it's no matter the suggestion unless it's the mayor's idea. Here's an idea, Mr. Skelly. Why don't you drop your lawsuit against us?
Next.
The next individual is registered as Michael Tooley, and I will unmute that individual now.
Thank you. The last time I served on the City Charter Commission, the city manager, Mr. Shora, shared with our members a publication from New York State Division of Local Government Services titled Revising City Charters in New York State. The publication speaks to the historical background of charter development, constitutional statutory basis of the charters, restrictions on the content of city charters, and approaches to charter revision. On the latter point, there are 3 ways to revise the city charter: revision by charter commission, revision by initiative and referendum, revision by direct legislative action. And regarding the direct legislative action, the author states that this option, quote, is infrequently used, unquote. The publication then offers 12 pages of detailed information to help charter commissions in their tasks. I mention this because based on the adopted city budget for 2021, the city might consider reorganization of city departments and offices, which if pursued requires revision of the city charter. The city council studies this possibility. I first suggest you obtain and read the publication I mentioned to help in the process. I know I'm a broken record, but if significant changes to the charter are going to be made, I believe city councils should not use the method of revision that is infrequently used in New York State, but instead establish a charter commission. I recognize the charter calls for a commission at least once every 10 years. That doesn't prevent establishing a charter commission in a shorter period since the last commission. Serious changes require deliberative review of an advisory board, help vet the ideas being presented by the city manager to city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
The next individual is registered as David Price, and I will unmute that individual now.
Counselors, I'm going to refer to a statement that was made just a few minutes ago. Trust me when I tell you this, having citizens speak to you in person is much different than have them speak to you remotely. Their presence in chambers makes a huge difference in the impact of their statement, and quite frankly, gives them a voice that has more power and doesn't allow you to hide behind a screen where you can click them off if they say something that offends you. So fast forward to Ogdensburg, New York, December 2020. We cut off citizens for having an opposing view. We deny them an opportunity to speak because they raised their hands too late. Democracy? Not here in Pottersville, Mr. Potter. It's a wonderful life.
Thank you, Dave.
The next individual is registered as Alan Rickett, and I will unmute that individual now. You are muted.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Mr. Rickett? Yes, sir.
Yes. Good evening, council. It's been a little while since I spoke to you. I'd like to clear up some misconceptions regarding last year's negotiations. We started in August of 2019. We had 4 meetings in total, finalizing in November of 2019. From the start, the goal of the city was to get to 24 positions in our department. 20 was never mentioned, not once. We negotiated throughout in good faith. Had the council or city manager at the time stopped negotiations for any reason, it would have been negotiating in bad faith. That would have brought on a grievance from the union. Now, let me remind the council that while I was the union president, you would not appoint an acting chief. I clearly explained that it was a cheaper, more efficient route. You ignored me. Now you have voted to violate many articles within our contract, costing the city an unknown but most definitely steep price. These are simple numbers to understand. Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you all.
The next individual is registered as Angie McRoberts, and I will unmute that individual now.
Yes, good evening, council. Just a couple items from earlier on tonight. Number one, the manner that the councils went about limiting public participation with moving the time up to 6 p.m. I think it's a little ridiculous when several councilors expressed their concern over being able to attend due to work, and also citizens expressing their concern about having to work. Moving it up an hour for a few people's convenience doesn't seem realistic, but it doesn't surprise me. Going also back to participating in city council meetings and addressing council, I'd like to remind Mayor Skelly of his antics last November 2019 of addressing the council. How he got up and screamed in the middle of a meeting, not at the microphone, not during public participation, but screamed and whined like a little girl. Next, I'd also like to address the hypocritical statement by the city manager tonight regarding having personnel matters only discussed in executive session. Who would be the one that is leaking to the public or to the press about possible suspensions and firings of numerous personnel throughout city departments? Would that be the city manager who will not express them in public right now? Seems a little hypocritical that you can't address Mr. Scamperly's concerns and you need an executive session for it, but you'll willfully go to Keith Benman or the other guy down in Watertown. That's all I had. Thanks. You're still not going to silence everybody. There'll be a way to get there at 6 o'clock. Don't worry about it.
Have a good.
Thanks, Scott.
The next individual is registered as Brian Mitchell, and I will unmute that individual now. Here's you are self-muted.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I'd just like to make one comment. The city manager, I've heard over and over, is extremely busy. I just happened to click on the city website and look at the powers and duties of the city manager. You got 4 bullet points. So if that's all he's got to do is 4 bullet points, we might want to reevaluate the job. The other thing I brought up last meeting about public updates, there was no answer. Click on the city website. Last public update was June. So it's either he's not doing anything at all or he has nothing to report. The next thing, I think our public updates have turned to Facebook. That's where the mayor and the city manager give the quotes back of how great of a mayor we have. Is there any way you can open that up to the public so that way we can see that if we're going to use that as our public updates? Because I believe that you guys have about 3/4 of the city blocked in the 2 of you. Mayor, I asked you last time to unblock me. And I know Jimmy Lawton clicked on it and said it was a little heckling, but I'm still blocked just so the public knows. And I think 3/4 of the city's still blocked. So if we're not going to use the public updates and turn to Facebook, let everybody in on that. And also, like I say, take a real good look at that website on the city because it looks like we have no jobs and duties to perform as a city manager. That's all I have. I hope you have a good evening.
It's like Groundhog Day.
The next individual is registered as Jason Bouchard, and I will unmute that individual now. Appears you are self-muted.
Good evening, guys. Excuse me.
Yes.
I have nothing about the fire department tonight. This is more city related. Mr. Fisher, you alluded to the fact that you didn't want the citizens silenced. Obviously, I can go on and on about the fire department for days. Al did a great job earlier, but I just wish that we wouldn't be shutting people off before they even had their speak and had their chance to address council. And if they did so, they wouldn't be silenced before. I truly don't. That's my biggest concern with what's going on with the city right now. You guys wanted to open up the rink, open up the swimming pool, which I think is great. And now you think they shouldn't bring people there? I'm kind of lost. We could all go in there, like Nicole said, and one by one address our concerns in person, because it is a lot different to do that in front of people. I'm just kind of lost. People last meeting were completely shut out before they had anything to say. This is not the democratic process. It never has been. It never will be. People are allowed to disagree with you. It's okay, but you have to let them speak. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too.
I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay, we do not have a need for executive session tonight, so I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn. Kathy?